Hello guys, I'm Blues. Welcome to my trading channel. Today I'm going to be revealing to you a secret trading strategy that you can use as a beginner trader, an intermediate trader, or a struggling trader to actually improve your profitability on the forex market, right? You've come across multiple trading videos online about support and resistance, but this one is different. This one will change the way that you see the market forever, right? So let me break down this in a very simple form. So whenever you come to every YouTube video, they tell you that support and resistance is the turning points on the market, right? Comes more like this. They tell you that you just have to find two touching points on the market, right? That's what they always say. You need two touching points on the market. You need two touching points on the market, right? And they be like, yo, if price taps the highs, you sell. Price taps the low, you buy. Price taps the high, you sell. Price taps the low, you buy. Maybe price has come to tap, you look for confirmation, and then you sell to the downside, right? But no, this thing here will never make you profitable, right? This concept will never make you profitable. It's good to learn this as a beginner, because as a beginner you have to learn everything all together. That's one truth I'll tell you. As a beginner, you must learn everything all together. Learn everything, because those things will open your mind to the chart. Those things will help you to understand the chart, and later on you can stick to only one trading strategy, right? So this isn't how you should be trading support and resistance, because you will never be profitable with something like this, because the market spend its time more on trending. Like the market spend more time trending than going up and down, like consolidating like that. It doesn't really work. Let me clear this chart and let me show you the right thing to do. So as a forex trader, right, the support and resistance that you are supposed to focus on is on continuation, right? The first one is break and retest, right? Yeah, you must focus on break and retest in continuing of the trend, or you should focus also on the higher low retest scenario, right? Price must break structure, tap the most recent higher low, and then continue buying to the upside, right? This is the higher low retest scenario, right? So these are the only trading setups that you should focus on, right? So all of them are based off continuation, right? But there's one that no one has really been talking about on YouTube as well: the inverse flip zone, or the inverse bottom shoulder zone, right? So you may be asking yourself, what's an inverse flip? What's an inverse bottom shoulder zone? Usually they are available on both the daily, the 4-hour. Like it depends on your entry time frame. If you are using 15 minutes or 2 hours or 30 minutes for entry, you have to use the 4-hour to do your analysis and then find that inverse flip zone, right? So the inverse flip zone is simply from when price breaks structure to the upside, right, and then it comes to the downside. It will tap this support level, pull back to the upside, tap that zone, right, and then sell to the downside, right? This is your inverse flip zone, right? This here is your inverse high, or the inverse flip zone, and this here is your inverse low, right? So at the inverse high you sell, right? At the inverse high you sell from the inverse high, and at the inverse low, you buy from the inverse low, right? You look for buys at the inverse low, because so at the inverse low you buy, at the inverse high you sell, right? This is the secret strategy that people haven't been really talking about online. So today I'm going to be showing you how to apply it on the first chart. Let me show you a practical example of how to apply this strategy on the forex market, right? This will make you profitable instantly, right? So the first thing you have to identify is the current price, right? The current price you don't need structure here yet. You need to identify the most current price, which is this one over here. So this is our most current recent price. This is the current one that's going on. Now, what is your most recent high from that current price, right? The highest high of that current price. This is your highest high of that coin. Now, where is your lowest low of that current price, right? This is it. Now, the question that you have to ask yourself is, does it have an inverse flip high? The answer is yes. As you can see, price sold from this high over here, came to the downside, right? And now it's bought back to outside, dropped to the downside. Now it's trading at this highs over here, right? So this is your inverse flip high. Now you remove this one. The concept is quite simple. You don't have to overcomplicate your chart, okay? You are waiting for price to come within this zone, retest the inverse high, drop to the downside, right? And at the downside, you are going to buy back into the upside, and when it stops the inverse flip zone again, you are going to sell back to the downside. It will look something more like this, right? What you need for price to come to the inverse flip zone, go to something like the 1 hour time frame or the 2 hours time frame or 30 minutes, 15 minutes, all of it to work, and you sell from this inverse side to the downside. You sell again if price comes back to that zone to the downside, and you look for buys right at this zone to the upside, right? And if price breaks out, right, if price breaks out of the inverse flip zone, you just look for break and retest, right? If price is to break out of the inverse flip zone, let's say price buys and then breaks out, you just look for break and retest, right? You buy and then you hold it to the next high or the most recent high or something more like this. And if price breaks the low of the inverse low, right, you look for break and retest and then you sell to the downside, right? Something more like, this is how you can apply the strategy. I don't want to overcomplicate things for you. Go practice this one on demo until you understand how to apply it strategically on the chart. Let me show you another example on the chart, an already done example. You could see right here that we had an inverse low right over here, right, and then we had an inverse high over here, right? You had an inverse high and an inverse low, right? Price came back to that inverse high, you just sell from there, you place your stop above the most recent structure, and then you take profit beyond the zone or inside the zone, right? You can go to a time frame like the 4 hours, the 1 hours, the 15 minutes. You can get proper entry time frame. Just make sure you are within the right session, right? And when price broke out of the zone, when price breaks out of the zone, right? When price breaks out of the zone, you can look for break and retest from this zone over here. You can look for break and retest, right? This is how you can apply this strategy and then become instantly profitable, right? This will help you to trade the trend much better and increase your win rates. You understand? Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos like this.